Hello, welcome to Code with Eddie. This is the fifth episode, and we are learning how to code games with Java. So far, what have we done? Let me run the code. So far, we are able to create this our game window. We are able to click the start button. We are able to create the game window and also be able to create a player or an entity in the game. A player entity, this white object. So in this lecture, we are going to be learning how to put keyboard event in this object so that we can able to move this object around this game window. So but before we do that, let's create another entity called enemy. So we've created the player. This is how the player look like. So let's just copy this class, make a copy of the class, and we'll call it enemy. So we go to the enemy class. So the enemy is exactly the same like the player. We will change the name, the entity type from the player to the enemy. So this entity type is in the enumeration class. So we have player, enemy, and annoying enemy. So those are the three enemies we've created already. We can as well go ahead to create the annoying enemy. Create the annoying enemy class. So the annoying enemy is also exactly the same, but we have just the annoying enemy name. So apparently the spelling of annoying is not correct, so we can just rename. So annoying, exactly. So we have created now our enemy. Instead of giving it white, we can give it a red. And an annoying enemy, we can give it an orange, and we'll give a size 10, smaller enemy. So now let's add these two enemies we've created in our player list. So it is in the game class. Remember, we have a list of game object which we are adding, and we've already added the player. So let's just continuously add others. So we can add it right here. We can go to handler dot add. So we can go new enemy. Let's just give it. So we can also add an annoying enemy, maybe at position 150. So I'm just guessing these numbers. No, so this is an annoying enemy. So good, we have an enemy, an annoying enemy, and a player. So we have three objects in our list. Let's run and see what happens. Also, these are them. So this is an enemy, the red, the annoying enemy, the yellow. Let's just try to put it down a bit, maybe some few 100, 150. Give it some height and some width, and there we are somewhere here. So this is the player, and this is the annoying enemy with orange, and this is the enemy with red. Now let's move this player without moving this enemy. That's what we'll be doing today, adding our key events to the player object. So the first thing to do is to create a class to handle that event, and we're going to call it input key. So the input key class will be we implement an interface from the key listener swing library interface, and this key listener interface has all the functionality to listen to input from our keyboard. So we are implementing this interface from the class. So this interface has three methods which we are to implement: the key press, the key release, and the key type. So key type event is when you press a key and you release it, is gonna run this function. Each time I press a key, my keyboard, I release it, whatever I put here will be run. The key press is when I press the key and I hold it, whatever is here will be run. And the key release, when I press a key, and when immediately I release, whatever is here will be run. And the key press is when I press the key. As I push the key down, it started working immediately. Even without releasing the key, it will be running. So this is where we want to be putting our key. So you can press the key, and if you press, as you keep pressing, the object keep moving, and when you stop, it stops. So this is where we want to be using. We might not use these two interfaces, so let's just these two methods. So let's just run all our function here. The first thing is to get the key that you've pressed. So when I press the key, I can use this function of the event to get the key. So the key will be e dot get key code. So every key in the computer has a code. So let's just sys out and see the code for a bit. I don't really want this lecture today to be long, but it looks like it's gonna be long. So let's sys out this key, but before we do that, we need to add this key event in our game object. So let's go to our game class and we add this key event. To add an event, we are adding the event in this game object. So we are gonna be doing game add key listener function. So this is a component, so we say this dot add key listener, yeah, I'm sure. And now we will create a new key input key, input key. So our input key class will be added. Now in our input key class, we want to be able to have access to all the list of entities. So we want to be able to have a constructor in our input key class that we're able to take in this handler object. So this is a key event. So let's go and create a constructor with a handler object. So we go to a key, we can create input key. So we don't need this one, sorry. Put it here, make it private, and we'll initialize it in the constructor. Yep, select. Good. So we now have access to all the game entity with this constructor. So if we run it now and we press a key, it's gonna indicate to us the key code which we are using. So let's run. So let's just press a key. So if you see, it's printing 39. These are key coming. Let me just stop the frame per second displaying in the game loop. So in the game loop, we don't want to be printing this anymore. So run it again, start. Okay, now if I press a key, you see I'm not getting the key because my focus is still on the button. So if I click on the game window, I'll be able to read keys. So these are key codes displaying each time I press a key in my keyboard. So let's make it such that immediately we run the start button, the focus should come to this we can just add a small code in our game immediately before we run our game loop. So yeah, this dot set focus. Is it set focus? Maybe let's see the options. One of the options too should be I think it's set focus. Yeah, let's put true. Let's see. I'm sure this is one of the options. Let's run. Oh, I've clicked. Let me run it without clicking. So I press my start. So let's see if he has printed. Yeah, good, it's working. So we have the focus of the interface without clicking this game window. So good, it's working. Now we've added our input key. What do we do with the input key is the problem now. How do we move the object together? So we don't need this line. Now we're gonna loop through every entity in the game object. So we loop through every entity in the game object. For each game object this, and for each of the entity we'll get the entity we'll get the entity x direction dot get. So we get the x direction, and then we check now if the key is the same as, so one will be able to use our left and right key. So this is what we want to do. So if I run this object, I want to be able to move my game entity, my player, left and right only. I don't want to go up or down. So players will be moving just in this same line, while the right enemies will be falling to hit the player, and the annoying enemy will be bouncing all around trying to hit the player. So that's are the three movement. So the white, which is our player, will be moving left, right. So now we've gotten the key. We're looping through. We've gotten the current X position. So X and Y is the left and right. We've got the current X position, and we're checking if this key that we've pressed is the same as a key event dot. So if I want to get if I've pressed the left or right arrow key, I can just do VK up left. If this key is, let's first start with the right key, VK right. Yeah, right, this is it. If this key is a right key, I want to be able to move right. So how do I move right? I will just go to this entity dot set x direction. So we are setting the direction of x. Set x to be this current x plus 5. We want to move 5 pixels to the right. So we take the current position, which is the x, and we move 5 pixels to the right. That's what we want to do. And we want to be able to check this. If the key is left, we are doing the same thing. So if it's a left key, we want to be able to move 5 pixels to the left. So we subtract 5 pixels from the current position that's going to the left. Now this is going to work with every entity. We have not specified if it's a player or not. So let's run it and see. If I run, if I use now my arrow key, I press left, all the entity move left. You see, they are moving left. If I do this right, they move right. So we want to be able to move only the player. So how do we do that? We have to add a condition inside here. So before getting the key or whatever, we have to check if the game, and if this entity the get type get the entity type, if it's the same as entity type from our enum.player, we want to be able to move player. If it's the same as player, before we can perform all this function we've been doing, or this function. So it has to be player before we can perform this function. So let's run it now. So we click start, we move right, see only the player is moving, goes left, right and left. So it cannot go up. If I use the arrow key up, it's not going. So that's how we are able to move our player in this lecture. So I'm happy you enjoyed this lecture. I was planning to have a very short lecture, but it looks like it's been long, so happy you're enjoying. So please, if you have not subscribed, please do subscribe. From in the next episode, we are gonna be moving our enemies all around, so the yellow enemy will be bouncing, and we're able to solve the problem of going past the game window, so it sees goes and go out of the film. So thank you, and see you. Subscribe please. Bye bye.